Welcome back to Race Report, everyone. We have just finished the Italian Grand Prix in Monza for 2022. So let's take a look at how that race went down, Firstly, coming into the weekend, we knew that Ferrari were going to have a special livery this weekend. Obviously, it's their home race, a special one for them. So they featured Ferrari House Yellow instead of their customary black fin and rear wing. We also knew about a whole bunch of penalties being applied for engines and other related technical mishaps. So we had penalties for Verstappen, Hamilton, Sainz, Magnussen, Schumacher, Tsunoda, Ocon, Bottas, Perez. The list goes on. Massive list, and honestly, it made qualifying kind of dumb. We also heard on Saturday morning itself that Alex Albon was out of the race weekend with appendicitis, so best wishes to him. He was replaced by Nick de Vries, the Mercedes reserve driver who was actually on hand for FP1 for Aston Martin this weekend. He literally just swapped cars. I will go over qualifying briefly. Like I said earlier, it didn't really matter a whole bunch because whoever qualified where didn't really matter. They all dropped to the back of the grid, essentially. So, out in Q1, we had both the Astons, both the Hasses, and Nicholas Latifi in his Williams. That did mean that Nick de Vries outqualified Latifi on his first ever F1 qualifying session and got into Q2, so good job to him. That's where it ended though. He went out in Q2 with Tsunoda, the two Alfa Romeos, and Esteban Ocon. It did mean that Gasly made it into Q3. It's been a long time since I said that. I think it's been about 7 races since he's made it into Q3, so good job for him. It was Charles Leclerc that stuck it on pole though. Verstappen was the second fastest, Sainz third. However, that was not where everybody would be lining up. It was a bit of a joke after the fact. We didn't learn the actual running order for multiple hours after qualifying had actually ended, whilst everything was calculated, all the penalties were taken into account and stuff like that. And actually Pierre Gasly tweeted out saying, "Does somebody know where I'm starting? That would be great, thanks." So yeah, I'm glad they were having fun with it, but it meant that watching qualifying really wasn't mandatory this time, and was a bit of a waste of time, honestly. But Leclerc did keep his pole position. He didn't take any penalties. And starting in second, we had George Russell. And in third, we had Lando Norris. The McLarens in particular doing very well with this new shaked up grid. We had a little bit of variance on the tyres going into the race as well. Leclerc and Russell, P1 and P2, starting on the soft tyres. They obviously wanted to get away well. Verstappen also started on the soft tyres, so did De Vries and Ocon. Everybody else started on the mediums though. Once we got into the race, the start was good. Russell really did give Leclerc a good run for his money off the line. Norris bogged down significantly though and lost a lot of ground, dropping down to 6th place. Plenty of people went off at the first corner. That's totally expected at Monza on the first lap. There's a little bit of contact between various cars, but I don't think any serious damage was caused. It certainly didn't come up later in the race. By the end of the first lap, we saw Verstappen jump up 3 places into 4th, and by lap 5, he was already in 2nd place. Dominant is the one word, and he was chasing down Charles Leclerc from there. Sainz was also making good progress. Obviously, he was down at the back of the grid thanks to all his penalties. I think he actually started 18th. By lap 6, he'd made 8 places, getting him into 10th position. He was fun one to watch at the start, just trying to overtake everybody. He was like, some of them were risky as well. He was an animal. Perez, who also started down at the back, wasn't having so much success, so they pitted him on lap 8 for hard tyres. He left the pits with his brakes on fire, which I thought was going to be significant at the time. It didn't turn out to be. He went to the back of the grid, but didn't have to stop again if he didn't want to. He could take the hard tyres all the way to the end. While all that's happening, Sainz is continuing his charge. By lap 12, he's up to 5th place. An amazing recovery from him, considering Perez and Hamilton were around the same kind of places at the back of the grid, and they'd not made such significant progress. It's around this time though that Vettel actually stops out on track with an engine issue, which causes a virtual safety car. So Leclerc pits from the lead for medium tyres under the virtual safety car. Verstappen and Russell choose to stay out, but the big question was, can Leclerc get to the end on these set of medium tyres? But from that point forward, Verstappen was now leading, Russell was P2 and Leclerc P3. The first real round of pit stops though started on lap 19 and continued to lap 20. plenty of drivers at that time were opting for the hard tyre. We'd later go on to learn that wasn't a brilliant idea, but it did bring Perez back into the points. On lap 24, we saw Russell pit from second place and go onto the hard tyres himself. He comes back out in fourth place. In the very next lap, Verstappen pits. He goes for the medium tyres. He comes back out in second place. Leclerc leads the race again with a 10-second cushion. Sainz makes his first pit stop. Obviously, he started on the medium tyres. He makes his first pit stop on lap 31 for the soft tyres. He comes back out in 8th, but crucially behind Perez. But that's no worry for Carlos Sainz. By lap 33, he has moved past Perez and he begins his charge up toward the podium places. Leclerc actually takes a second stop on lap 34, just one lap later. He then takes the soft tyres as well. He comes out ahead of Russell, but hands the lead back to Verstappen, so it's about a chasing game now. Hamilton at this stage also has soft tyres and he's very fun to watch. He's carving through the field and making it up to 6th place. The soft tyres toward the end of the race were doing the business for whoever put them on. Red Bull see this and they pit Perez for a second stop for him as well, taking off his hard tyres that he'd gone almost the entire race on and putting on some fresh soft tyres. But just Perez's luck in this race. Just a few laps later, Ricciardo's engine conks out on the track. And that's such a shame, honestly, because Ricciardo was having a great race. Obviously, he won here last year, so it was a feel-good feeling for him. And he was pretty much matching his teammate around this track. But his engine blew, and we have a full safety car. It looked like we were going to have an interesting restart. Plenty of drivers took the free stop, and they all slapped on the soft tyres. I think the top 4 all had fresh, soft tyres on. So we were going to see a proper battle. But unfortunately, we never got there. The race finished behind the safety car. And the commentary team for Sky were really harsh on this happening. They were debating all the different ways that it could have been done and stuff like that. But am I the only one thinking that sometimes it should finish behind the safety car? I mean, Abu Dhabi last year should have probably finished behind the safety car. Sometimes that just happens. You can't get around it. So perhaps it's fine to finish it this way, right? Anyway, that meant that Max Verstappen won the race with Charles Leclerc in second place and George Russell rounding out the podium in third place. Sainz's recovery ends well with 4th, Hamilton's recovery is 5th, and Perez's recovery is 6th. So all 3 of those guys did a great job coming from the back of the field. The other big story is that Nick de Vries scored points for Williams with a 9th place finish. How about that? Good job to Nick de Vries, a great result considering he only found out that he was racing on Saturday morning whilst having a coffee break. It does have to be said though, that is surely the nail in the coffin for Latifi's F1 career though, isn't it? A rookie who's never driven a race before, who had one practice session, has come in, out-qualified, and then scored points on his debut, whilst Latifi gets nothing. Not looking good, is it? Overall, the race was definitely not as spectacular as we've had in previous years. Of course, in recent times, we've had Gasly win here with AlphaTauri, we've had Ricciardo win here with McLaren, but this time it was dominated by the fastest car, and that was Max Verstappen. Ferrari didn't even help him with any bad strategy calls this time. I think Ferrari got every call right. They just weren't fast enough on the day to stop the reigning champion and surely the person who's going to be champion this year as well. What did you guys think of the race? Let me know in the comments. Let me know over on social media at Race Report Pod. What did you think of the race? What did you think of the qualifying situation as well? Because I was in two minds about whether to watch qualifying at all. I did in the end, but I didn't know if I should because the order was not decided by qualifying. So that was an interesting one. I want to get your thoughts on it though, so let me know, and I will catch you in the next one.